We're dealing with the most unprecedented global migration problem of the modern times. People's countries sending people intentionally to America that they do not want in their country.
Citizenship's become a joke. It should mean something.
Why would we be propagating a system where all of these violations of human dignity occur? Question about mass deportation. Hi, Tom. I was listening to EWTN this morning and Anna Mitchell was speaking to Ken Kaycraft, who recently wrote an article for OSV. He spoke about some problems with J.D. Vance from a Catholic perspective. One thing in particular is that he has a problem with mass deportation. He said that it is not Catholic. I wonder if you could talk about this at some point. It's confusing to me because I actually agree with that platform. Is that wrong?
Was it wrong for these 8 million, 10 million people to come into this country illegally or not? Was that immoral? It was certainly illegal. Was that wrong of them to do that? If it was, if you can't say that, if you can't say it was wrong, then we have a problem. If it is wrong, why would it be wrong to return them?
I'm guessing where this came from, in particular, is John Paul II in Veritatis Splendor. He actually listed, when he's talking about the distinction between intrinsic evil and circumstantial evils, he lists deportation as one of the intrinsic evils, the assaults on human dignity. And so people always pull this out of Veritatis Splendor. Even people who hate Veritatis Splendor will use it, just to be clear, who's actually saying this. But it's important to note that when the words deportation appear, which is not very often, Jimmy Akin found 91 instances in the last 100 years in church documents. Deportation is usually used in the context of John Paul II or post-Vatican II, when what they're addressing are the mass deportations of Jews, of Slavs, of Poles during the Nazi occupation of Western Europe in order to eradicate those populations. That's genocide, so genocidal deportations. We were talking about this, Pogo, beforehand. Later on in Memory and Identity, which is John Paul II's last book that he wrote before his death, he did address the idea of patriotism, right? And he writes, "Patriotism is a love for everything to do with our native land, its history, its traditions, its language, its natural features. It is a love which extends also to the work of our compatriots and the fruits of their genius. Every danger that threatens the overall good of our native land becomes an occasion to demonstrate this love." And I think under a proper understanding of patriotism and why a nation would secure its borders for the sake of its homeland, for the sake of the people native to that land, could be applied to the idea of mass deportations understood as asking a large swath of people who came here illegally to now return and forcing them to do that. So I wanted to just give a little background and context on that because people might be seeing John Paul II's name thrown around as, oh, he said it was intrinsically evil.
We are not dealing with JP2 era migration problems. We're not even dealing with FDR migration problems. We're dealing with the most unprecedented global migration problem of the modern times. I mean, we have received migrants from, I think it's in the 170s of countries, 170 plus different countries. Most of the time when America was dealing with immigration problems, it was from Mexico. And there were times of deportations where they just sent them back to Mexico. Great Depression would be one example of that. So we are dealing with people sending military-aged men from every country in the world at a level that is completely unsustainable to the American people, all facilitated by the current administration. And so in order to act in the best interests of Americans and the migrants themselves, we need to work towards a solution here. And I even wanted myself, because I was like, okay, I'm going to go look in the catechism to see what they have to say. I control F the catechism. There's one mention of immigration. If you go to church documents, we mentioned a few, but Dignitas Infinita is one as well. Pope Francis wrote an encyclical on it. Receiving migrants is an important and meaningful way of defending the inalienable dignity of each human person, regardless of origin, race, or religion. Great. You can still deport people with dignity. We can argue about the tactics of a way to do this to maintain people's dignity, but there's also an elephant in the room of what are we going to do with all of Venezuela's criminals? What are we going to do with the people here killing, the Laken Rileys of the country, the people abusing the 12-year-old girl from Houston? Like, this is not just a Mexico problem. This is people's countries sending people intentionally to America that they do not want in their country. We are going to need to have some deportation solution for the common good. There's nothing not Catholic about that. And really, There's no doctrine that understands the current moment that we're in right now. It's so different than the JP2 eras or even previous Pope Francis eras.
We're in a new era, as you say, Tom. And the fact of the matter is, it was Democrats 40 years ago who were against illegal immigration. Bernie Sanders was against illegal immigration. Why? Because he's like, it hurts the working man. They don't care about that anymore because they realized how many millions of votes they get by having illegals come to this country. And then they have any kids they have, they're automatic citizens. That whole automatic citizenship thing made a whole lot of sense when you come over on a boat, in the 1800s. I don't think that makes sense anymore. But that was another thing that was just decided by a Supreme Court ruling in the last part of the 19th century. That was no vote in Congress anyway. Birthright citizenship, all this stuff. Citizenship's become a joke. It shouldn't be a joke. It should mean something. And anyone who comes into the country illegally should be returned to their country of origin.
I can tell you what does violate human dignity by encouraging people to take long and treacherous journeys here. All of the rape that occurs on the way here, the sexual abuse, all the human trafficking happening within our own country in which children come here through coyotes and then get sold into child labor, sex work, almost a statistical guarantee that if you are a woman making that trip, you're going to be sexually abused at least 3 times. The fact that we're even at the point of the argument where you're like, oh, can you deport people? Is that okay? Why would we be propagating a system where all of these violations of human dignity occur? We should stop that as soon as we possibly can. There is a right way to come in this country that we've established because we generously believe that you should have a chance to come into our country if you come with the right means and you want to contribute to the common good. Closing our border and having a coherent system to treat migrants here with dignity and to treat the people in the country with dignity is as Catholic as it gets, if you ask me.
We'll see what happens. I mean, Trump gets elected. I think there will be some deportations, obviously, but I think the biggest thing is going to be what's known as self-deportation. And you say this and the media freaks out like you're a bunch of idiots. But the fact of the matter is, if you crack down, if you, first of all, you stop giving them, you make sure that cities like New York City are not giving out these $2,000 free debit cards and giving away free housing. If you just cut that off, pretty soon these people realize, I don't have a gravy train here. I have a better option of going back home, and you make it easy. Hey, you want to go home? Here's the way to do it. And so these people start going back home because they have a better shot.